Reviewing the latest combat sitreps. Whole infantry squads are getting neutralized in under 5 minutes. Multiple hostiles dropped or forced into a chaotic retreat before even hitting the zero line. No heavy artillery, no fast movers, no massive firefights. This is the brutal new pattern emerging across the Ukrainian battle space. Down in sectors like Pokrovsk, we are tracking small Russian assault elements, pushing in short, aggressive bounds, hugging cover to pressure the Ukrainian defensive lines. But a massive chunk of these maneuvers never hit their objective. They stall out, lose tactical cohesion, and shatter under pressure. And listen, the cause is not always heavy kinetic strikes. More often, we are looking at a silent, lethal web of elite snipers, recon drones, and thermal optics operating deep in the background. This generates a terrifying new threat matrix. The kill zone does not wait for the first rifle volley anymore. It activates way earlier, usually the exact second a hostile unit gets painted by overhead surveillance or a thermal signature. If this trend holds, entire frontline operations bleed momentum without taking catastrophic losses. These enemy elements are not completely annihilated, but they are pinned, stalled, and forced into a reactive posture. What looks like one suppressed round from a sniper is actually a massive control system locking down movement before the actual firefight even kicks off. That triggers a much deeper tactical question. You and I have to ask, if every single footstep gets tracked and every pause draws fire, what does ground movement even mean today? A sniper operating in this Ukrainian theater is most effective not by stacking bodies, but by shattering that precise window of momentum an infantry squad desperately needs to advance. That is exactly why these marksmen are terrifying around Pokrovsk, where Russian commanders are currently pushing small assault teams instead of massive armored columns. These ground elements are not rolling with heavy armor or speed. They infiltrate through pulverized villages, shattered tree lines, muddy trails, and tightly exposed kill zones. Their entire survival hinges on perfect timing, tactical spacing, and squad-level trust. Every single operator needs to know exactly when to push, when to hold, and when to execute the next command. In this type of maneuver, one key point man carries the tactical weight for the whole element. Could be the squad leader setting the tempo, the navigator checking azimuths, or the guy making that silent call to bound across the next open stretch of dirt. The second that specific target gets dropped, the fallout eclipses a single KIA. The unit loses all tactical rhythm at the absolute worst second, and the terrain ahead instantly turns into a massive, terrifying meat grinder. Initial contact is pure chaos. Half the squad hits the dirt immediately. Others scramble blindly for the nearest trench, rubble, or defilade. A few freeze up for a sploom into second, because they cannot pinpoint the sniper's hide. On the battlefield, that hesitation is a death sentence. A cohesive fire team suddenly fractures into isolated grunts, making panicked individual survival choices under heavy stress. Let's look closely at this dynamic. Command and control evaporates before a squad leader can rally them. That is why this shot is far more than precise ballistics. It is a surgical strike designed to sever the psychological thread, keeping that assault force together. Once that nerve is cut, the entire offensive operation warps. A platoon ordered to punch through a hot zone is suddenly just fighting to survive. A quick tactical bound mutates into a crippling operational delay. A seemingly clear infiltration route instantly transforms into a death trap. The clock immediately turns against the attacking force. This kinetic friction becomes critical because Russian high command near Pokrovsk heavily relies on these tiny squads to probe Ukrainian defenses, sniff out weak points, and build pressure without committing major armored battalions up front. This exact doctrine depends on aggressive, continuous momentum in short leaps. Lead element pushes up, a support unit holds the rear, and reserve infantry braces to exploit the breach once clear. If that frontline element gets jammed up, every single echelon behind them loses forward momentum. They stall out, freeze in place, or fatally cluster together in exposed choke points they were meant to bypass quickly. This means a single suppressed trigger pull paralyzes far more than just the hostiles occupying that specific grid square. It wrecks the deployment spacing of reinforcements, traps, support assets, and forces combat commanders to scramble for new routes under fog of war. The real tactical damage here isn't just about the body count. It is measured by how many enemy troops are entirely paralyzed. That is the brutal new tactical shift you and I are watching right now. The modern sniper is not just a lone wolf hunting for a clean headshot anymore. This brutal doctrine weaponizes movement itself. Once our enemy's momentum is shattered, the absolute burden of survival shifts entirely to the attacking force. They face a brutal choice: hunker down, retreat under fire, or scream for medevac, and every second wasted costs lives. This brings us to a critical question as we watch this conflict unfold. If a single precision round can paralyze an entire assault element, is modern warfare defined less by heavy artillery and more by absolute control over operational timing? Frontline sniper teams are no longer operating as simple two-man cells because the legacy shooter-spotter model has been lethalized by real-time drone integration and remote battlefield sensors that monitor the kill zone from deep cover. Traditionally, the spotter manually calculated range, windage, and target lead for the shooter. While those basics still apply, high-tech recon has revolutionized how we gather target data. In hot zones, an aerial drone maps the entire engagement area before the shooter even chambers a round. This creates a lethal synergy where surveillance dictates the battle, long before the first trigger pull. We see this play out when an enemy infantry squad advances along a seemingly dead sector. The hostile troops disperse, moving in fire teams along a route offering partial visual cover, using collapsed structures, tree lines, and ruined highways. At first, the sector remains dead silent. No panic, no warning shots fired. High above, a tactical quadcopter hovers on a low-profile flight path, hugging the terrain to mask its radar and thermal signature. Its mission is not kinetic. Its mission is surveillance. The high-definition camera feeds their movement back to command, logging where they slow down, where spacing tightens, and where they bunch up before crossing open ground. Soon, these small actions form a predictable pattern. A sharp turn becomes a tactical pause point. A shattered concrete wall becomes a temporary rally point for the squad. A bottleneck forces them to push forward or lose all momentum. And that is where our modern technological edge shifts the balance. Our sniper is not just staring through glass, praying for a target of opportunity to cross their reticle. The engagement is planned around enemy routines we have already mapped and calculated. What looks like a chaotic firefight to the enemy is perfectly visible to our aerial assets. The drone processes their movement into highly trackable serial sequences, giving our shooter an overwhelming combat advantage. This completely rewrites the timeline of the engagement. Our eyes in the sky monitor the target until they enter a strict bottleneck. We do not engage while they still have escape routes. They are permitted to advance until the path constricts, their pace drops, and their next move becomes completely predictable. Only then does the shooter initiate the kinetic phase. This deliberate sequence eliminates almost all tactical guesswork. The marksman already knows exactly where the squad will pause and which soldier will lead. Our drone has identified which hostile is navigating, which one is directing the fire team, and which exact spot on the path offers zero cover. By the time the heavy barrel fires, the battle has already been decided by silent surveillance. This is why the drone is not replacing the sniper, it is lethally extending their reach. One controls the skies from above. The other delivers the fatal kinetic impact on the ground. This is the brutal reality of the Ukrainian front. Modern war is no longer won by simply having a more powerful scope. It is won by turning human behavior into predictable patterns, then striking with devastating precision when the trap closes. Let us ask ourselves the ultimate question. In this lethal system, what is more decisive, the drone mapping the movement or the sniper terminating it? The most lethal weapon in our arsenal today is not the rifle, but the capability to dominate terrain before the hostile force even realizes they are targeted. Empty ground on this front is no longer neutral territory. It is actively monitored, calculated, and turned into a pre-registered target zone. Any hostile element crossing this terrain is walking into a trap. They are funneled by obstacles, low-lying ground, and their own desperate need to maintain unit cohesion. This creates critical choke points, where enemy infantry must stall, pivot, or bunch up before trying to push forward. These fatal choke points matter far more than ground. A tight corridor between ruins, a breach in the tree line, or a bare field forces tactical choices that cannot be delayed. Hostile squads try to minimize exposure with cautious bounds, but that slow pace inevitably leads to predictable pauses in these exact spots. As these natural funnels and fragmented cover begin to dictate their movement, a lethal new layer quietly comes into play. When ground visibility drops and direct fire is no longer viable, our drones take over the hunt. We are seeing Russian infantry advance into these dead zones expecting some level of protection. Underbrush, low tree lines, and scarred earth obstruct horizontal sight lines, giving the enemy a false sense of safety from direct visual contact. At eye level, the path looks safer than an open field, but our overhead assets see a completely different picture. An aerial platform does not require flat lines of sight. It tracks heat and movement from angles ground forces cannot easily scan. The assets stalk silently from distance, mapping exactly how their troops transition from one piece of cover to the next. It holds fire, waiting for the targets to cluster, slow down, and begin relying on soft foliage rather than survival through raw speed. Operational footage from a recent tree-line engagement shows a Russian fire team moving down a tight dirt trail bordered by thick vegetation. They assumed the cover would mask their signature, allowing them to reform before pushing ahead. Instead, our drone tracked them as they bunched up behind a thicket. Within seconds, a kinetic strike neutralized the position. The lethal blast wave scattered the survivors in total panic, instantly shattering what was left of their squad cohesion. In another hot zone, hostile forces fled into a patch of low woodland under heavy pressure, assuming the canopy was dense enough to blind our optics. However, our airborne thermal imaging lit up their signatures instantly. The drone repositioned, waited for the group to go static, and dropped a precise munition right into their center. Surviving personnel were flushed from cover, left completely exposed as they attempted to flee the kill zone. We also documented a third clash near a ruined outpost choked with heavy overgrowth. Several combatants took cover in the rubble, betting the chaotic terrain would shield them from direct engagement. Our operator did not rush. It orbited, confirmed their coordinates, and mapped how the squad was dispersed. The moment their lead scout signaled to advance, we delivered a devastating kinetic payload. The blast forced the survivors to break cover and run, transforming their supposed safe haven into an open graveyard. When the ground gets fogged out, the battle does not stop. You and I see it shift upward, and once our drones dominate that airspace, every single hiding spot is quickly logged as a target. On today's battlefield in Ukraine, the marksman is no longer just the predator. He is also the prey, forcing a brutal second-by-second shift in how he maneuvers, conceals, fires, and survives. The threat profile includes overhead assets, thermal sensors, and aggressive counter-reconnaissance teams. Aerial surveillance blankets the entire front. Thermal optics are everywhere, and counter-sniper operations have become viciously systematic. This means a concealed firing position is compromised the very second it establishes a repeatable signature pattern. A muzzle flash, a thermal signature, a silhouette, or minor shift in position triggers a rapid kill chain ending in devastating return fire. Camouflage now demands far more than just blending into dirt and leaves. A modern hide site must bypass not only the human eye, but multispectral cameras, electronic sensors, and persistent multi-angle surveillance. A concrete wall or dense brush might temporarily obscure visual optics, but they offer zero protection against infrared tracking or overhead drone surveillance. Terrain that once offered a secure, long-term hide is now a high-risk liability. This completely dictates our pre-shot preparations. As you and I look at this reality, snipers must pre-plan angles, infiltrate without a trace, and extract before hostile forces can initiate a counterstrike. Out here, finding the target is only the first step. We must open a brief window for the shot without exposing our shooter. Every second is a death sentence, which is why discipline is absolute. A sniper must remain motionless for hours, controlling their breathing, timing every tiny adjustment, because the second that round leaves the chamber, the threat level spikes. The hostile force might not spot the muzzle flash, but they know a killer is operating in their sector. Ground troops immediately scan every possible angle. Overhead drones pivot to search the sector. Thermals hunt for any abnormal heat signatures. Meanwhile, mortar teams prep high-explosive rounds to rain down on any suspicious cover in the area. So, a confirmed kill instantly triggers a fight for survival. At this stage, displacement is just as critical as the shot itself. No shooter can linger and pray that their camouflage keeps them invisible. They have to break contact fast, moving to an alternate position, or exfiltrate the hot zone before the enemy seals it off. Hesitating for even a moment can ruin a perfect mission. Getting out alive requires speed, but panic will get you killed. A frantic retreat leaves a trail. A structured egress leaves nothing. The brutal reality is that natural cover no longer offers the safety troops expect. Sparse woodlines and rubble can block direct line of sight, but they cannot hide a thermal signature or a repeated pattern of activity. If an operator lingers, the high-tech sensors of the modern battlefield will find them. Those same hostile tracking systems are now actively hunting our own marksmen. So, the question isn't just about whether snipers are still relevant. The real question is whether any operator can survive on a modern frontline where staying hidden has become the hardest skill to master. Today's designated marksman is no longer a lone wolf stalking the edges of the fight, because right now in Ukraine, they are a single node in a massive kill chain. It starts with drone spotting, moves to precision sniper fire, and ends with secondary strikes. We are seeing this evolution play out in real time, from the opening shot to the end. First, an aerial drone spots the enemy movement. It tracks the patrol quietly, mapping out their exact advance as it unfolds. Once the path is locked, the sniper is vectored in at their most vulnerable choke point. But when that first target drops, the operation is just getting started. A secondary strike force is already on standby: heavy artillery, explosive FPV drones, or backup spotters ready to hammer the zone. This coordinated loop transforms a single hidden rifleman into a massive force multiplier. No longer is the shooter merely looking through a glass optic and pulling the trigger. They operate within a tactical network that prepares the target before the squeeze and devastates them right after. This synergy delivers a far deadlier impact than a single rifle ever could. Modern combat gear drives this entire lethality shift. A .338 Lapua rifle provides devastating range and accuracy, allowing shooters to neutralize threats while staying well outside the hot zone. High-end thermal optics expose camouflage targets that are completely invisible to the naked eye. Integrated laser rangefinders and ballistic computers strip away the guesswork, ensuring that the first round hits dead center. Tech doesn't replace human instinct, but it maximizes lethality on a chaotic battlefield where any error is fatal. And when the shooting starts, the enemy doesn't just freeze. The combat environment accelerates rapidly, and that next wave is dominated by support systems waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Our artillery batteries don't even have to search for the enemy. They are already pre-sighted on the target coordinates mapped out by our drones. We observed one incident where an enemy assault squad tried to push through a ruined sector under sniper fire. Their lead scout was dropped instantly, forcing the survivors to scramble into a nearby trench. Seconds later, heavy artillery pulverized those exact coordinates. We also see command using artillery not to destroy, but to block escape. When an enemy squad retreats, we drop fire behind them, trapping them in the open. This block cuts off their retreat, forcing the target unit to stall on highly exposed, deadly ground. Under that intense pressure, their advance stalls, and the brutal cycle repeats. The lethality of this system lies not in a single weapon, but in the seamless sequence linking them. A sniper disrupts their tempo, artillery crushes any hope of recovery, and the entire battlefield becomes linked. Every step feeds into the next trap, where any delay offers the enemy another opening to strike. If an active combat unit cannot move unseen, cannot halt without being targeted, and cannot regroup without drawing heavy fire, then the combat is no longer defined by raw firepower. Survival belongs to whoever dominates the kill chain, from the initial sighting to the final precision strike. In an environment where every defensive reaction is predicted and instantly punished, is there truly any safe moment left on the modern battlefield? The tactical evolution in Ukraine is no longer just about superior rifles, advanced drones, or high-tech optics. We are witnessing something far more lethal. It is about seizing control of the next second before the enemy even senses the danger. This is the critical lesson of these operations. A sniper does not need many shots to completely alter the course of a battle. A surveillance drone does not need to strike to completely control the ground below. This explains why designated marksmen remain vital in modern warfare, though their core role has evolved. The position is fully integrated into a massive network, a kill chain starting with detection and ending in total disruption. True supremacy is no longer measured in raw firepower, but in timing, coordination, and weaponizing a single mistake to trigger a systemic collapse. As this trend accelerates, the next era of warfare will belong to the command that detects movement first, anticipates reactions, and strikes the instant chaos takes hold. Yet, a chilling question remains. Can any frontline unit maneuver safely when the enemy is monitoring every footprint in real time? Tell us your assessment in the comments, because this tactical shift is transforming warfare faster than high commands realize. If this intelligence briefing helped, like, share, and subscribe to Military Force for our next deep tactical report.